Hey, welcome everybody. This is Sex Afflictions and Porn Addictions. I am your host, Craig Pera from www.themindfulhabit.com. I'm the founder of the Mindful Habit System, the world's #1 at-home addiction program for men struggling with sex and porn addiction. And this broadcast is to empower you to create healthy sexuality and a great life. And this one's part of my Sex and Porn Addiction 101 series. And today we're going to be talking about sexual hunger and sexual compulsivity, okay? And what I hope to do today is to give you a different perspective on how to look at, view, and ultimately treat your compulsive sexual behavior. And today, I have a special guest. He is our resident expert, a psychologist, graduate of the University of Adams Mickiewicz in Poznan, a recovery coach. He's getting certified as a psychosexologist. He is certified in the Mindful Habit System. He's been working with me for years. My brother, my best friend, and a former client, Adrian Sztobryn. Welcome to the program, brother.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
I'm so glad you're here. And every time I get ready to pronounce your last name, there is still this feeling of panic and dread that comes over me. Man, how long have we known each other? And I still screw it up sometimes, don't I?
Right. But it's normal. It's a very hard surname.
All right, let's do it. Let's jump in. So I've often said, Adrian, that sex and food are really similar. Why are they similar in your opinion? And why is sex drive just like our hunger for food?
So basically, I had that gut feeling that there are many similarities between food and sex a couple years ago. But I just learned recently on my sexology postgrad that our sexual drive, and it may seem obvious for many other people, but for me, coming from the background that I have with my struggles with compulsive sexual behaviors, getting certified as a recovery coach, I felt that sexuality is something that is risky, that we have to control it somehow, that, maybe you have to sometimes go just totally abstinent without any kind of sex to heal. So I had all of those ideas, as many of you probably have, during my own recovery. And I found that some of them weren't working as well. And at some point I realized that it is because sexual drive is a very natural force in our body. Just like hunger for food is a very natural thing for our body. We naturally tend to need certain amount of food, certain type of food, and in the same way, certain amount of sex and certain type of sex. And it is based on our hormones, on the way our genetics work, and it's not going to change until your hormones change, or the balance in the hormones changes. So that was like a big revelation for me. It seems really obvious, but for me that was a big revelation that those two things are very, very similar, that we just need certain type of food, certain amount of food. It's different for everybody. Some people need more food because they are working out. Some people need less. Some people really have to eat meat because their blood cells are just going really, they struggle with the blood tests, or some people need to eat different type of food, like vegan food, because this is the best for their bodies. And the same is with sex. Some of us need sex every single day, and it doesn't mean that it is sexual addiction. It's just high libido. You have a lot of testosterone and you need to have sex daily. And some of us need sex actually once per week, but they are having sex 10 times a week for some reason. And that's what we're going to talk about very soon. But that's like the biggest issue for me, that we have a misconception around sexuality and that we don't treat it as a natural force very often.
And one of the interesting things that I learned, or where I think the comparison to food is so important, is just like our relationship with food was trained in us, most of it in our most developmental years, our relationship with it, the role that it serves. So I remember coming from a big Italian family. You always had to clean your plate, even if you were sick to your stomach and you were ready to burst. And as a result of that training, food serves a lot of different purposes. It helps people cope. It helps people deal with life. It helps people escape. It's for comfort. And sex has so many related attributes in terms of the purpose that it's serving. And the last podcast we did, Adrian, we talked about that sexual optimum. And now I want to talk about that sexual optimum in terms of sexual hunger and sexual overeating. What have you learned about that?
Yeah, so just coming back to that metaphor of food, right? Like, imagine that you need certain amount of calories, where you don't have to imagine, this is actually the truth. You need certain amount of calories every single day in order to maintain your weight, to feel the same level of energy, and to survive, basically, right? You need certain vitamins, you need certain amount of calories, certain types of food. And what happens is that, imagine that you are eating let's say one pizza a day. That gives you a certain amount of calories, and that's enough for you. After eating one pizza, you feel that you're full, you don't want to eat more. But imagine that for some reason, after eating that first pizza, you're forced to eat second one, third one, fourth one. How would you feel?
I'd feel pretty sick. Yeah, pretty sick to my stomach.
Right. Like, that can create disgust. You may be
bloated. I'd feel bloated and yes, sick. I'd feel really, really sick. I'd feel bad about myself. I'd feel ashamed that I ate so much when I knew it wasn't good for me.
You may even, if somebody forced that, like you said about the Italian families, if you were forced by the situation to eat that much, you can be also resentful towards those people, angry at yourself that you did it, right? So all of those difficult emotions come up because you didn't eat as much as your body needed. You were above your optimum when it comes to food. And the outcome is disgust. You may not want to eat pizza for a month, or just not eat anything the next day, right? So you're very repelled by the idea of eating anything. And, I think this is very, very similar to our sexual needs and sexual drive as well. So there is this sexual optimum, that amount of sex that our body needs, regardless of the circumstances, that we naturally are programmed, right, to have. So, for example, for somebody it may be 2 times a week, right? And this is the amount their body needs, actually. So imagine that you are forcing yourself to have sex 10 times a week when your body needs it actually just 2 times. You're going to be disgusted with sexuality, disgusted with yourself, repelled by thinking about females, repelled by the view of your wife being naked in front of you, right? And I know many of guys who are struggling with this compulsivity, sexual compulsivity, are having those feelings regarding themselves and sexuality after having a binge, for example. I remember having those feelings.
And Adrian, one quick point I want to make too for you guys listening. When Adrian's talking about sexual expression, we're talking about it in any of its forms. So this isn't necessarily, having sex 10 times a week. It's watching porn, 10 times. It's masturbating.
Yes.
It's escaping in that way. Is that right?
Yes, exactly right. Any kind of sexual release, basically. That's what I meant. So not only having sex with a partner, but any kind of sexual release. So, when you are in the sexual optimum, you feel good. You feel like you're in control. You can focus. Your thoughts are not going to sex all the time. And, you feel in general balanced, I would say. When for some reason you're going overboard with your sexual activity, and we can talk about those reasons later, that's when you start to feel disgusted with sex, disgusted with yourself, disgusted with the stuff you see. You may feel like you've violated yourself or your boundaries. if that would be forced by somebody else, you would be very resentful and angry at that person. And sometimes we are very resentful and angry at ourselves for doing that to ourselves. So that's going overboard with sexuality, similar to going overboard with eating. And there is also something that is below our sexual optimum, and that's the sexual hunger that we talk about. That's happening for people who have the natural need to have sex, let's say, every second day, but their partners have the natural need to have sex only once a month, for example. That's a huge difference in sexual drives, and it doesn't have to be a difference because there is a struggle in relationship. It can come from just natural preferences. And because of that, if you don't want to have sexual experiences outside of your relationship, you just want to have sex with your partner, you may go into this sexual hunger. You don't have enough sex, basically, enough sexual releases, and you start to think more and more about it. It's almost like, imagine that you didn't eat for like 5 days, and then you start to fantasize about food. You start to talk about it with friends. Oh, what I would eat when I come back home. I remember when I was a scout, we had very bad food there, and we did very little eating also. So at some point I was just fantasizing about food all the time. Similar to sexuality also, you start to fantasize a lot about having sex when you don't have it, basically. And that happens for couples who are not having sex, or when there is a big difference in libido, in sexual drive. That happens for those couples. And I would say that is a problem, right? Because then guys, if they are very hungry sexually, when they are starving for weeks and months, they can go out of control. When they have some kind of sexual release, they go berserk, they binge. So they go from the hunger to overeating right away. They are never in the sexual optimum. So we have to really know what our body needs in order to find that sexual optimum. And that's very hard, but that's the perspective. There's the hunger, which is not enough sex, or below our optimal amount. The optimum, which is what our body needs, exactly that amount of sexual release, and sexual overeating, which is above our optimum, more than we need actually. And those things have certain impact on our psyche and on our approach to sex in general.
And both extremes are so impactful. And listen, I feel for anybody who's out of alignment. The guys who are starving and their optimum might be, for example, 2 times a week, and their partners is once a week, or they're 3 times a week and their partners once every 2 weeks. It's not every guy who has a high sex drive is addicted to porn or sex. And I just want to say that again, because and I say this to people when they call me. I said, just because you want sex more than your partner does not make you an addict. What makes you an addict is when you're lying about it, sneaking about it, hiding it, getting caught in hiding it. And when that sexual expression becomes the person's primary numbing, coping, and escaping strategy. And, it's easy, Adrian, isn't it, for the porn to be the bogeyman and the behavior to be the bogeyman, when in fact there are, some serious intimacy issues that need to be addressed with the couple. Do you agree with that?
Yes, definitely. And I would just add to that what you shared about like the sexual compulsion and how's that different from just wanting to have sex more than your partner. That for me, sexual compulsivity, or like you said, sexual addiction, something that we know as sexual addiction, is different in that way that we tend to have more sex or more sexual release than our body actually needs. So we tend to go out of control, and that becomes something that we overdo, right? So if somebody is having sex, let's say, or with the partner once a month, and they masturbate once a week because this is how their body, expresses itself, and this is what their body needs, I don't see that necessarily as an addiction. I see that as a healthy release of sexual drive. But when they do more than they want, actually, and they go overboard with these activities. What I mean here that we start to watch porn that we actually feel repelled by, we don't like. There is some kind of, I would say, repulsion or unhealthiness in that stuff that we watch, or we masturbate so much that it hurts. We can't even get an erection, but we keep masturbating. That is a sign of sexual compulsivity going, right? That you have much more than your body needs because you struggle with psychological issues, because you struggle with some feelings, some issues in relationship, because maybe you were starving for too long, or because you are having issues around intimacy. There are many reasons why we go overboard, why we start overdoing sexual activity. But for me, that's a big sign. When you do more than your body needs and then you're repelled by the sexuality, that means it's a compulsion. It's not something that is a healthy expression of your high sexual drive.
Well, in one case, in sexual optimum, the body is in alignment. In sexual hunger or sexual compulsivity, the body's out of alignment, right?
Yes, exactly. When you're hungry, you start to, and I know many guys who are going through sobriety, so to speak, so they don't have sex at all, are going through this. You start to notice that your body is responding more to any kind of touch. You start to feel maybe, just like an electric sensation going through your body when somebody touches you, or you even scratch your hand. You can notice that your body needs touch, that it needs some kind of physical intimacy. You can notice that you have spontaneous erections, that it's almost like your penis is screaming to you, just do something with me, just do something. That's a sign that you're in the hunger mode, right? And usually when we are compulsive, though, we don't have an erection, or we don't feel like that this is exactly what we need to have sex, but we feel bad with ourselves. We feel this kind of void inside, and we start seeking some kind of escape. What it could be? Well, how can I numb that frustration or that void that I have inside of myself? And our body often doesn't respond very well. You try to masturbate, and sorry for being graphic here, but you try to masturbate and you don't have an erection for a long time because your body doesn't need sex. It needs to work with frustration, with trauma, with intimacy issues. It doesn't need sex at the moment, but you kind of force yourself to orgasm because this is your way to escape the negative feelings. So, or the difficult feelings that you're having at the moment. So you're out of alignment with your body. You're abusing your body in that way, and that's not good for you as well. Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting, and same thing with food, is if you're under, if you're over, correcting, getting to sexual optimum is just one part of the puzzle. And this is the point that I'm so glad you're helping drive home, Adrian, is. And it's why I love to say, and anyone who's been listening to this podcast for any period of time knows, the behavior is the symptom. So for all these reasons that Adrian's citing, and probably some others too, that, why you're out of alignment, it's why it's so important to address those underlying issues. You mentioned earlier, Adrian, here's a big one, the resentment towards our partners. And in fact, that resentment, Adrian, has become so pronounced. And, back in the old days, I would let the client, I still let the client pick the subjects of their voice dialogue. But on my list of recommendations is the liar, because there's always some great, incredible growth around the lying about, when you think about the lies around food and sex, there's just so much interplay. The liar, and the other one is that resentful part, the I resent my partner, my wife, my girlfriend, my fiance part. It's just because it's such an important realization to understand, because nobody wants to confront that. Nobody wants to admit that. But this work really forces that out front and center. And I would encourage everyone who's listening now, who's in a relationship, is to, take a long, hard look in the mirror and see where that resentment might be festering and growing. And what do you think, Adrian? I think most people are going to find something to work on for themselves, don't you?
Sure. I do think that that's really important. All those feelings that we have in relationships, and especially in relationship to sex, are very important, because that they may be reason why we choose an activity outside of marriage or outside of relationship, or we choose to watch porn instead of just enjoying sex with our partner, because we have resentment to that partner, because we are afraid that the partner is going to judge us, because we feel like sex is such a chore and it's not fun at all, because you never know what to do exactly, or you're worried that you're going to not have a hard-on, or you're worried she's not going to reach an orgasm, right? All of those anxieties around sex and resentment and anger and fear, all of that is affecting our sexual activity, and it can move our sexual activity away from relationship. It can, I would say, even kill our sexual drive. If you have low sexual libido in general, let's say that you need sex every second week or once a month, you have low sexual libido, and you have a lot of emotions going through your head. Let's say maybe you're depressed, you're anxious about your relationship, you have resentment to your partner, you may start to not crave sex at all. And that's what many guys experience in their recovery. At some point, they get in touch with their feelings, and they get in touch with the reality of the relationship, and they start to say to me, I don't feel like I want sex at all. I feel like I am totally, dead down there, like what's going on? It never happened before. And for me, that is a sign, that there is some kind of emotional blockade, very often. It's of course it may be biology, but for some reason you can have an erection when you're watching porn or you're having sex with somebody else, and when it comes to your relationship, you're totally dead down there, right? Why is it happening? It is because those things that we mentioned, resentment, fear in relationship, anxiety around sex, having this approach to sex that it's some kind of a task that you have to accomplish in order to feel good about yourself. So it becomes a chore. All of that is very important in terms of our sexual joy and health.
Yeah, so important. Thank you, Adrian. And for you guys listening, think about the rationalizations and justifications that you've come up with over the years for your secret behavior. And listen, it's not an easy thing to do, because no one likes to think that they've rationalized their secrets, but there's a very, very good chance that you have. And so think about, I justify my secrets because my wife is angry at me. My wife doesn't like to perform this maneuver. I'm unable to express my sexual self to her because of the damage that I've caused in the relationship. You will see justifications. And obviously once you've exposed those justifications, opportunities to do something about it. So for the guys who are looking to eat well sexually, how do they do that? What is a couple steps, Adrian, that people can talk to finding that sexual optimum, and ultimately the goal, as is the goal in our program, and if anyone here is struggling with sex addiction and porn addiction, your goal must be sexual health. What are a couple things people can do to move towards that sexual health?
Sure. So first of all, what I'm going to say probably will be a bit controversial to some people listening, but I'm going to share it anyway, since that's part of my story and my sexual healing. So I think that it's important, first of all, when you are going through recovery and you want to heal that area of your life, to take a moment without sex and to see after how many days, you start feeling aroused, triggered, obsessive about sexuality, right? How many days after an orgasm you start to feel that I have to have a release, right? Is it 1 day, 1 hour, 5 days? How many days? And also you have to ask yourself, how many days after having a good sexual experience I'm feeling this way, right? Because very often we tend to use the type of sexual activity that is not really fulfilling for us. And I realized with porn, for example, it always left me a little bit empty inside. I felt anxious, depressed afterwards. It was never fully fulfilling, but after having like a good sex with my partner, I don't feel triggered or aroused for next 2-3 days for sure. And I'm a young guy, right? So, that's my kind of sexual libido at the moment. So I noticed that I had a great sexual experience, 2 or 3 days passed, and I'm starting to get interested in my partner, in her body. I start to notice that my thoughts go to sexual stuff. You may start to fantasize maybe about people around you also. You see that your eyes are going to different women on the street. That shows you that this natural sexual tension is there. And of course, you have to direct that sexual energy towards your partner or towards the person that you feel good with, right? It doesn't have to be, a married partner, but somebody that you really feel safe with, and you feel good about that relationship. So I would say that's the first step. You have to notice how much sex your body actually needs, and it's very hard when you're going overboard with sexuality. You're masturbating every day, so it's good to take a couple days, a week or two off, and just see when your body starts to respond, to sexual stimulation. That's, I think, the first step. Second step is when you notice that this is how much you need, let's say it's twice a week, and your partner wants to have sex less often than you, then you have to think about other activities that you can use in order to fulfill your sexual desire. And that can be, a situation where you include your partner, for example, a scheduled masturbation session. Maybe you can be together in the room. Maybe you can do some role playing, or sexting, or just, do stuff with your partner that she may enjoy, that you also can enjoy, but without forcing her to have sex with you when she doesn't want it, because that will be overeating for her. That's forcing a fourth pizza on her, and that's not going to work. Many partners start to hate sex with guys, we mostly work with guys, right? So I know many women start to hate sex with guys because they have lower sexual drive, and guys keep manipulating them into sex or forcing them to have sex in some way.
Let me just add Adrian,
Sure.
to what you're saying is the guys aren't present when they are having sex. So we hear all the time, heads in the pillow, eyes closed, thinking about the pornography that they watched or that scene. So they're now, like, if your wife isn't, doesn't have the same drive that you do, before you call it quits, what can you do to make her feel emotionally safe? And when you're lying about your sexual expression, that is not going to increase that emotional safety, which is critical for that vulnerability and then that intimacy that's necessary in a long-term committed relationship. So, guys, what my experience is that you, while there may be an out of alignment when they start working together, when we start working together, but when the guy realizes the lack of presence, how disconnected he is, how incredibly unsafe he made his partner feel, and when he starts building that, the partners want to be more exploratory, have more fun, enjoy it more, and because you've created that emotional safety. It's so important to recognize that a lot of the messes that some of our guys are in are the result of their doing, and the secrets that they've kept around sex and their lack of presence when they are having it. So just another reminder to everyone that the goal must be healthy sexuality.
Sure. And also, what I want to say is, also just not to say that guys are always the part of relationship or the person in relationship who wants sex more. There are the females who have high sexual drive, higher than guys. And also in that case, you have to learn how to say no. It's okay to say, honey, today I'm not really craving sex. I would like to cuddle, or I would like to recharge my batteries. And I would say that's fine as well. Don't feel emasculated when you're saying that, because that's also providing yourself sexual safety and being in sexual optimum. So in that case, nobody should manipulate or push anybody in order to have more sex than they need. We shouldn't do that to our partners shouldn't do that to us. And there are a variety of activities that we can do together or with common knowledge that everybody knows what's going on, that can fulfill this sexual drive in a way that that includes both people and doesn't kind of abuse anybody. So very, very important part of relationship. And one thing more that I wanted to speak about in relationships is that sometimes guys who are long term in that overdose of sexual activity, they are watching porn every single day, masturbating 3 times a day, having like 5 meetings with prostitutes a month and things like that. This situation creates a huge overdose of, I would say, sexual stimulation. So in that case, if you want to get aroused again by just having vanilla sex with your partner or just being intimate with your partner in that safe and nice way, also, enjoy this intimacy with one person in general, you have to start changing, your activity a bit and maybe go intentionally into a little bit of hunger. So you're craving sex with her a little bit more and your responsivity to sexual touch and sexual experience is much higher. Because if you're keeping yourself in the overdose state, you're not going to be interested in your partner. You will be feeling like, like how I can compare that to, tons of movies that I watched, right? So many times partners suffer because of the porn use and the ideals that guys create after watching porn. How many partners we've heard that were sharing that I can't do the stuff from porn, I don't like it, but the guys just crave that, and they crave as much stimulation as they can because that's how they train themselves. Well, you have to untrain yourself, go into hunger a little bit, and then you're going to notice that your partner is starting to get much more exciting to you. You start to get much more aroused during sex. Maybe you will going to have a full erection first time in a long time if you allow yourself to go into a little bit of hunger, not starvation, but a little bit of hunger. So that's like my final message to guys who are in this overdose state, which probably most of you watching are right now, is to allow yourself to be hungry, and then you're starting to crave your partner much more, and you can direct that energy towards them.
Yeah, brilliant advice, Adrian, and it's I've seen it work so many times, and the reason why it works is because I like to say that I treat intimacy disorders, and what I mean by that is there are all sorts of reasons why a man's sexual energy flows so naturally, automatic, instantaneously, in a terribly unhealthy, ultimately self-destructive direction, and all sorts of reasons why it doesn't flow so naturally in a healthy direction. If it did, God bless, you wouldn't be listening to this podcast if it did. And by going into a place of a little hunger, I think of the song, the Duran song, Hungry Like the Wolf. I'm going to read the lyrics when I'm done because that may not apply at all, but that was the first thing that popped into my head. Your powerful sexual energy needs to be channeled and directed. And I want to thank you, Adrian, for giving me and these guys some tools on how to direct that energy in a healthy direction, and thinking about it like you may think of food. So important. So you got to eat well. And so many of our clients who are struggling with compulsivity on the sex side are also struggling with compulsivity on the food side. So an incredible opportunity to really get in control of two very important areas of your life, and that is frankly the gift of addressing this problem. The output isn't, oh, look, I stopped doing something. No, to break a habit, you have to make a habit. You're doing something else. You're eating well. You're living well. You're directing and channeling that powerful sexual energy. And if you are having trouble directing and channeling that powerful sexual energy, please get in touch with Adrian. He is offering a 50% discount because of Corona. He wants to help you no matter where you are in the world. He can work with you. And let me tell you exactly how to get in touch with him. First, call 1-800-214-5249. I'm going to read that number again. That number is 1-800-214-5249. Or you can reach out to him directly, Adrian at themindfulhabit.com. His email address is Adrian at themindfulhabit.com. Or, of course, you want more information about Adrian, the Mindful Habit System, me, visit my website, www.themindfulhabit.com. Thank you so much for listening. Embrace your power of choice and feed the right wolf inside you. Thanks, everybody. Make it great. Bye-bye. Bye, Adrian.
Bye.